I share this to shatter the preconceived notion that most children trafficked come from broken homes, are troubled, or are runaways. I was none of these. The reality is that any child can be groomed and trafficked. From the age of 18 until my rescue, I was flown across the United States and forced to do things I didn't want to do, but did because of fear of the consequences. And traveling on airplanes, nobody would have ever known I was a trafficking victim. Traffickers know this and use fear to gain and maintain control of their victim, beat down the will to live, and use the victim however it best fits the agenda of the trafficker. Human trafficker survivors are often the pawns of crimes masterminded by the traffickers and seen as throwaways who can take the blame. So I presented it to Representative Gress, and I said, we need to update this because the issue that we have currently are survivors that were charged with prostitution because somehow automatically at the age of 18, somehow you're consenting to what's happening to you when you're really being trafficked. So you're charged with prostitution or some other petty crime, which is not uncommon for those that are hungry.
Ms. Lopez for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Chairman Biggs, Ranking Member Macbeth, and members of the committee. I am honored to testify before you today on protecting victims of human trafficking and online exploitation. My name is Sherry Lopez, and I am a human trafficking survivor and founder of the nonprofit Pearl at the Mailbox, named in honor of a brave woman who rescued me from 7 years of trafficking at a mailbox. I share with you today's survivor's point of view. I grew up in a stable, two-parent home. I had just turned 15 and was trying to find my place in the world. I was an insecure and shy teen, which made me vulnerable to manipulation. I share this to shatter the preconceived notion that most children trafficked come from broken homes, are troubled, or are runaways. I was none of these. The reality is that any child can be groomed and trafficked. I met a boy in the drama club in high school, and he quickly introduced me to his father. Throughout 3 months, he groomed me and became my first trafficker. This began my 7 years of being sex trafficked. From the age of 15 to 18, I lived at home, and my parents had no idea what was happening to me, and I could not find the words to tell them that I was repeatedly being raped. This continued on the weekends and over the summer while I was in high school. There are many times I tried to stop what was happening. However, every rape had been recorded and used as blackmail to force me into submission, along with other threatening actions that were messages to me to comply. From the age of 18 until my rescue, I was flown across the United States and forced to do things I didn't want to do, but did because of fear of the consequences. And traveling on airplanes, nobody would have ever known I was a trafficking victim. Over time, my body operated on autopilot while I emotionally checked out to cope with the trauma. During my 7 years of being trafficked, I had 4 traffickers. One was a woman. See, a trafficked person has a shelf life. Once they are no longer useful to the trafficker is going to get rid of them, which could include being sold to another trafficker, such in my case, kicked out, resulting in many homeless teens, or they're going to be killed. Traffickers intentionally set out to destroy the will, heart, and soul of their victim and would not hesitate to take their life too if needed. When a victim gives up on life and their will to live is destroyed, the brain goes into self-preservation mode to keep the heart beating, even if the victim would rather die to end the abuse. Survival is in our DNA. Traffickers know this and use fear to gain and maintain control of their victim, beat down the will to live, and use the victim however it best fits the agenda of the trafficker. Human trafficker survivors are often the pawns of crimes masterminded by the traffickers and seen as throwaways who can take the blame. Many times, human traffickers are labeled as domestic violence victims and inadequately represented legally, and therefore easy to convict, a box that can be checked and a person to put behind bars, while the trafficker can afford better legal representation and receive a lesser charge or accountability for their role in forcing another person to participate in what they orchestrated. And let me share with you that it took over 25 years for me to grasp even what happened to me, to be able to put a name to it, and then it was anger that another person had the right to abuse another person in such fashion that I finally had to speak up. And now you cannot keep me quiet. I found my place in legislation. Last year, with the help of Representative Gress, I was able to get the Arizona Vacator Law updated and signed by the governor, which gives human trafficking survivors charged with prostitution or minor criminal offenses the ability to meet with a judge and potentially get those charges set aside. Also, I participated in a group with the help of Representative Bliss, Senator Bullock, and the guidance of Representative Nguyen, which was Prop 313. And it was created by the Arizona voters on the ballot, and it was passed unanimously in the state. And what this does is it allows any adult who traffics a child under 15 is convicted with the charge will spend the rest of their natural life in prison without the possibility of parole. Why is this important? Because a trafficked survivor has a life sentence themselves. I will never get away from what happened to me. The life I had before is now gone. I respectfully ask that you support the Trafficking Survivors Relief Act. Doing so will give survivors hope that they can go forward and have a new life.
I'll go now to you, Ms. Lopez. The vacatur statute in Arizona that you worked on with Representative Gress in Arizona, that was to protect victims of trafficking who sometimes get caught up with committing crimes themselves. And so I wanted you to explain that and how you got that through.
Thank you for the question, Chairman Biggs. Yes, I like to find laws that are completely outdated and useless when it comes to protecting survivors. And the Vacator Law was one of those in Arizona. It had an effective date of crimes prior to like 1987, something. So I presented it to Representative Gress, and I said, we need to update this because the issue that we have currently are survivors that were charged with prostitution because somehow automatically at the age of 18, somehow you're consenting to what's happening to you when you're really being trafficked. So you're charged with prostitution or some other petty crime, which is not uncommon for those that are hungry and the trafficker is controlling their aspects of eating or drinking, so they steal food to eat. And being able to update this law, which was supported unanimously through the House and the Senate on both sides, and now it allows survivors who have these charges to be able to fill out a form and request to meet with the judge and hopefully get those set aside so that way they can apply for background checks. Of course,
Then they get a clear record and they can live a normal life after that.
Well,
to a certain extent.
Yeah, with the Vacator Law, it's not expungement, so they still show up on a fingerprint clearance card.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Somehow cut it off. Yes, but they can go on. It gives them hope. Somebody who maybe wants to be a teacher can now apply to be a teacher. Somebody who wants to be a nurse, such in my case, I became a nurse and I was able to do that.
Thank you for that, and I know that there's additional work to be done on Arizona's law as well, so we'll be talking about that.
Ms. Lopez, is prostitution a component of human trafficking in your experience?
Well, it is a result of being trafficked. It's not a choice by the victim.
But it's a component of human trafficking.
It is, absolutely.
Is that right?
Because somebody is paying for a service.
Yeah. Is it helpful to your cause to encourage prostitution?
No.
It is not helpful.
To encourage prostitution.
Yes. That does not help
No.
to limit human trafficking. Is that right?
Well, if you're saying that prostitution is okay, it opens the door for anybody to say, okay, well, I'm going to say this child who's 17, but looks like they're 21, let's go ahead and prostitute them, and we're not going to be held liable.
So in other words, legalizing prostitution is not going to be helpful to your cause.
No, not at all.
So perhaps I come to you, Ms. Lopez. What would the effect be of actually demolishing government funds, grants to all of these organizations? There are some people who just want to shut it all down. And what would that mean?
I can't speak to other organizations, but I can tell you Pearl at the Mailbox will never accept government grants.
And how come you don't accept government grants?
Because we want to be able to continuously employ the people that we choose to employ, and we don't want to be beholden to another agency that tells us what to do.
Thank you, and tell Ms. Tebow we appreciate your efforts. Ms. Lopez, Pearl at the Mailbox. Wow, what a name. Tell me, how does that work? I know you only got about, 60 seconds or so, but tell me a little bit about Pearl at the Mailbox and what you do in your organization.
Mailbox, we work on prevention. There's many organizations that work on the post-rescue, but there's not a lot of people working on the prevention side. If we can teach people to spot it and stop the grooming process, we have a better chance of protecting children from going into trafficking.
How do parents and grandparents, what is one of the signs that you think that we maybe as parents and grandparents might miss? What is something that, I know you need to be involved in your children's lives, and we certainly are, but tell me, is there a certain thing that you recommend, maybe a 2 to 3 bullet points, hey, here's what parents and grandparents need to be looking for?
You know, in my case, I would always say, and other survivors, it's the behavior that changes before ever words are ever used to say what's going on. If a child is behaving differently, wanting to spend more time away from home, maybe have new friends, just things to look at. And we've lost our ability to listen to our intuition, and we kind of forget that, okay, maybe we need to pay attention because something's not right in our home. But I say that the schools is the missing link. We don't have enough prevention education in our schools.
Thank you, and I'll yield back.